hawks and doves, progressives, moderates, conservatives, from left to right, Democrats, Republicans, the ANC finds common ground across the U.S. political spectrum, across the American policymaking landscape. You can read about this in Aspares, in an article we just published called Hawks and Doves. Or if you'd like a deeper dive into our issues, check out ANCA 360. It's a 6-page review of our strategic priorities and also our current advocacy objectives. But right now, I'd like to run through just a few of the areas in which we built really constructive and effective coalitions around the American political landscape. I'll start with hawks, sort of referencing back to the title of the article in Aspares. In terms of hawks, these are typically folks who prioritize hard power. We're working with that element in the U.S. political system to enforce U.S. sanctions against Turkey over its increasingly anti-American conduct, its destructive behavior in the Middle East. We think that needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed with hard power in the form of economic sanctions and other restrictions on access to international lending institutions. But that doesn't stop there. We also work with doves, people who prioritize diplomacy. For example, through Congressman Pallone's U.S. Artsakh Travel and Communication Act. That piece of legislation is based on the premise that dialogue, not war, is the answer. That we need more talking, less fighting, that there needs to be an unfettered and open dialogue among all the stakeholders. And that needs to start with America speaking openly to all the parties, and that includes Azerbaijan, includes Armenia, and it includes Artsakh as well. In a more human rights direction, we have our work with on the genocide prevention movement. We work with the Friends Committee for National Legislation. It's a Quaker organization which is leading a very diverse coalition of groups in fighting against atrocities and genocide, specifically through the Elie Wiesel Genocide and Atrocities Prevention Act, and we're big backers of that, and that's a kind of a human rights component to our coalition building. We also talk and work very closely with environmental groups, and we're deeply committed to sustainable environmental policies in Armenia. We just saw the introduction of the Haiti and Armenia Reforestation Act. This is a debt forgiveness for forestation swap, essentially, one that would help Armenia settle its debts to the U.S. by adding to its forest cover. It's a win-win all around, and it's something that we are very proud to support. In terms of the anti-mine movement, there's been an anti-mine movement globally now for decades, and we're part of that. And our particular piece of it is the Halo Trust demining of Artsakh. And we have worked with appropriators now for essentially a decade, securing U.S. funding for Halo Trust's work to remove mines, to get rid of unexploded ordnance, and also to conduct mine education in Artsakh. We work as well with the business community. We're pushing for increased U.S.-Armenia trade. That can be facilitated through a tax treaty that would eliminate the threat of double taxation. There's other measures as well, including a Social Security agreement. Ultimately, we'd like to see a U.S.-Armenia free trade agreement. In terms of industry, we also cooperate with U.S. manufacturers regarding Turkey's undeserved special access to U.S. markets through the GSP. That's the Generalized System of Preferences. It's a program that is meant to support low-income countries. I'm not sure why Turkey qualifies, but nonetheless, Turkey does qualify for very, very special treatment of its exports to the U.S. We think that needs to end. We saw recently that the administration did, in fact, call for a review of those special trade preferences, and we're very pleased by that. Our cooperation, of course, extends to the question of the Armenian genocide. There's a whole range of activities that we undertake there, but one particular area that we're very proud of is our work with Holocaust and genocide educators. And we have, to date, working through local Armenian national committees, secured genocide education, Armenian genocide education in states across America. Just a short list would include California, Michigan, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Georgia, Kansas, Minnesota, New Jersey, Ohio, Arizona, Texas, Virginia, Illinois, and a number of other states. So we take that very seriously, and we work closely with groups like the Genocide Education Project and others to support the teaching of the Armenian genocide as part of the public school curricula across the country. I'll wrap up this short list. There's many, many others that we can add to, and say that we work very closely, and we did this just as recently as last week with the International Religious Freedom Movement. There was a ministerial meeting meeting, including representatives of about 80 countries at the State Department for 3 days a short time ago. We took part in that ministerial conference and worked with that coalition to protect the rights of all religious minorities throughout the world, but with a special focus on Christians and other minorities, at-risk minorities in the Middle East. We're very, very devoted to that on behalf of our community, but on behalf of the region as well. Diversity in that part of the world is a very, very important priority for us. That particular coalition is obviously deeply invested in the freeing of Pastor Andrew Brunson, who's been unjustly imprisoned in Turkey, and we're working within that context as well for U.S. recognition of the Armenian genocide. We're certainly getting a very sympathetic hearing within that movement. We hope to build upon that to move toward full and formal U.S. remembrance of the Armenian genocide. These are just a few examples. There's many more. You can check out Asparez and check out the Asparez website. There's an article called Hawks and Doves. And finally, if you get a chance, you want a deeper dive, look at ANCA 360. This is a 6-page review of our strategic priorities, our record of results, and also our current advocacy objectives. Thanks for taking the time to join with me today. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Please stay in touch.